Hello, and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, 4 Israelis are killed in a terror attack in Tel Aviv. Hamas is claiming responsibility for the attack and praising the terrorists. And Prime Minister Netanyahu is promising a decisive response to the attack. I'm Denise Wood here with the latest news in Israel. Four Israelis were killed and more than 15 were injured in a terror attack that took place last night at the popular Sarona market in Tel Aviv. The victims have been named as 42-year-old Idan Ben Aryeh, 39-year-old Ilana Nave, 58-year-old Dr. Michael Fega, and 32-year-old Mila Mishayev. 2 Palestinian terrorists dressed in suits and ties sat in a restaurant before getting up and shooting randomly at others in the area.
This evening, just after 9:30, 2 terrorists opened fire at a very busy mall, shopping center and restaurant area in the center of Tel Aviv. Immediately, police units were dispatched to the area and responded and engaged with those 2 terrorists. One of the terrorists was shot at the scene and arrested, and the second terrorist was shot at the scene and arrested as well.
The Hamas terror group has already claimed credit for the attack and is calling the terrorists heroes. The 2 attackers have been identified as 21-year-old cousins Muhammad and Khalid Muamra from the West Bank village of Yatta near Hebron.
والله أنا تفاجأت صحيح يعني مش متوقع منه بس ما بعرف شو اللي دفشوا عليه شيء يعني الصح ولا دعا أو مين اللي رتب معاه أنا ما بعرف نهائيا لأنه الولد بيشتغل عامل يعني لا هو منظم ولا عنده أي اتجاهات سياسية نهائيا. ما بدري تفاجأت في الخبر أنا زي الناس يعني.
The attack took place at the Max Brenner restaurant in Sarona, and workers at the cafe say the terrorists were dressed like businessmen wearing suits and ties. And they even ordered a chocolate dessert before whipping out their weapons and firing on the restaurant. One of the attackers' weapons apparently misfired, and he fled the scene to a nearby street before being apprehended by the police. The other continued to fire on civilians and was later captured by the Israeli police while still in the Sarona complex. Israel is already promising to respond to the incident, and Prime Minister Netanyahu even went to the scene of the terror attack last night as soon as he landed in Israel on the way back from a trip to Russia.
This is a savage crime of murder and terrorism in the heart of Tel Aviv. It's done by criminal terrorists who don't value human life, who are willing to murder innocent citizens who are sitting in a coffee shop. I think a larger tragedy was avoided by the resolute action of citizens, of security people, police. We're going to take the necessary steps to attack the attackers and to defend those who need to be defended.
Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman is also saying that Israel will do everything necessary to respond to the situation, and that Israel will do so in a severe manner. The international community has also strongly denounced the attack, with UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon saying there is no justification for terrorism, and calling on the Palestinian government to condemn the attack. The US has strongly denounced the attack, along with the United Kingdom, Canada, and France. And in Israel, security forces are already operating in the terrorist hometown of Yatta, where they've sealed off the village entirely. The IDF also raided the home of one of the terrorists and interrogated his family. And Israel has rescinded more than 200 work permits within Israel for members of the terrorist family. The Defense Ministry also says it's freezing tens of thousands of permits given to Palestinians to travel to Israel during Ramadan, as well as revoking permits for 500 people from Gaza to attend Friday prayers at the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has just completed 2 years in office, and he's beginning to test his influence in Middle East diplomacy. Mike Widlansky is an expert in Egyptian affairs, is fluent in Arabic, and even studied in Cairo. The veteran journalist told ILTV's Steve Leibowitz that al-Sisi's involvement could be limited due to major internal problems in Egypt.
Egypt has problems which exceed al-Sisi. Within days of his coming to office, he realized just how deeply they were. They had lost all their foreign reserves, about $20 billion, and he's stopped some of the release or the drop of the reserves, but he can't bring the country back. Remember, his predecessor, Mubarak, and his predecessor, Sadat, had basically only slowed down the decline of Egypt over 40 years. It's a horrible situation where 97% of the people live on 3% of the land area. It's like everybody lives on top of the sewer. It's very hard to keep sliding into the sewer. If you can stop the slide, it doesn't mean you've gotten to paradise.
Now, he has made a speech, some days ago in which he encouraged Israel and the Palestinians to come forward to the peace table. He also promised that he would put all of his resources, all the resources of Egypt behind such an effort. Does he have much influence in the Arab world with the Palestinians and with the Israelis?
This takes us back to your first question a little bit. He has very few resources at his disposal, and he's fighting a terrible battle at home against terrorism. He wants to appear to be a major player in the region, but everybody in the region knows that he can't deliver on most of these promises. The Gulf states know it. They've thrown billions of dollars, some say 12 billion, some say 18 billion, into Egypt just to keep it afloat. They're not going to send troops anywhere, and they're not going to be major peacekeepers. However, Egypt is the most centrally located and the most populous Arab state, so it has a symbolic influence. And if he can be a good influence in that regard, I think that's good. And he realizes the danger of Islamic terrorism, the danger of extremism in general, and to have somebody like that pushing for peace, for a regional effort, is always good. We shouldn't overdo it and think that he's going to achieve it like that.
Dealing with terrorism, he's faced a plane being brought down by terrorists over the Sinai, basically destroying the tourism trade to Egypt, visits to Egypt. He's also been dealing seriously, it seems, with Hamas and its terror tunnels, eliminating most of them, smuggling and terror tunnels. Isn't there a shared interests between Israel and Egypt in dealing with terror that will bring those two countries together?
Absolutely. First of all, Sisi and the rest of the Sunni part of the Arab world realize very well today that the major danger has never been from Israel. The major danger is with extremists at home, in the Sunni community, and the Shiite community led by Iran. And most of them realize now for several years that the major danger is Iran and its offshoots such as Hezbollah, which are spreading terror wherever they can. I think Sisi sees a real regional ally in Israel. I think Mubarak also did, but Mubarak was scared to move on it, and until Egypt felt the full measure of terror, its elites weren't really ready to embrace Israel even under the table. I think Sisi is ready for that, and I think it's happening without fanfare.
So finally, on this issue, Sisi said this week, just today actually, that he thinks that if an Israeli-Palestinian deal is arranged, or at least if they're on the right track and heading towards an agreement or back to the table, it can help alleviate a lot of the problems in the Middle East. Do you think that's the case?
No, and I've never felt it to be the case. I think the so-called Palestinian problem, or what the Arabs call al-Qadiyya al-Falastiniya, the Palestinian cause, is an excuse, and it has always been an excuse. I think most Arabs realize it's an excuse, and since the mid-1980s, they've been increasingly understanding it. However, it still has currency among large parts of the population, and I don't think we're going to get real progress until there's a new Palestinian Arab leadership, maybe even a replaced Palestinian Arab leadership. I don't think it's a problem with Israel. I think Israel could give in to 90% of the Palestinian demands. And the Palestinians would say, and what about the last 10%? And then if Israel gave the last 10%, they'd find something else to ask for. That's the problem.
We just told you how Israel is responding to last night's terror attack. Now we'll take a look at how the Palestinians are responding. But we have to warn you, it's pretty brutal. The Hamas terror group released a statement yesterday claiming responsibility for the terror attack. Hamas is praising the shooting attack as heroic and saying there will be more attacks during the month-long celebration of the Muslim holiday Ramadan. In fact, Hamas media even posted a photo of a traditional Ramadan dessert stuffed with a bullet that was labeled Tel Aviv Operation. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas's Fatah party has also released a statement on Twitter, saying Israel was reaping the repercussions of choosing violence against the Palestinian people. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon is also denouncing the Hamas leaders for celebrating the attack, saying he was shocked to hear of the celebrations. And it looks like the terror attack isn't the only thing the two Palestinian groups are agreeing on. Reports are now emerging that Abbas will be traveling to Qatar next week to meet with the Qatari Emir and Hamas leader Khalid Mashal. The groups will reportedly be meeting to discuss a reconciliation between Fatah and Hamas, as well as the measures that are needed to bring about Palestinian national unity between the groups. Abbas is also expected to discuss the French peace initiative with the Qatari leader, as well as steps to take against Israel in the international arena. We've been talking non-stop about yesterday's terror attack, which killed 4 Israelis and brought an end to the period of relative calm in Israel. Colonel Erez Vino spent years in the Israeli military, and he's here with us today to talk about the current situation in Israel and what the Israeli defense system is doing to stop the wave of terror. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you.
So, first of all, a lot of people thought the wave of terror was coming to a close, and then we're hit with this awful attack yesterday. What now?
Well, if you try to be a little bit, I don't know if melodramatic, but maybe that's why they call it waves. It's like the waves.
Sure.
It comes and goes. Terror here in Israel, unfortunately, you can say, never stopped. Since 100 or more years ago, when Jews came back and started to resettle and rebuild their country, we see waves of terror. Sometimes they are harsh, and unfortunately, sometimes they're getting to big clashes, what we call war or operations. And between we have quiet moments, sometimes it's weeks, days, months, years. And unfortunately, we're still in there. We're not yet gone to our paradise. But
Sure.
That's part of our being here, and we have to understand that.
Definitely. Now, this current wave of terror that's occurring right now, it's been nearly 10 months, I believe. Why do you think it's still ongoing?
It's still ongoing because, unfortunately, the basic element that is behind this terror wasn't or isn't dealt properly. Terror, this level of this terror wave is based on, I would say, copycat. Some of those terrorists are looking around. They're looking up north to the ISIS and other Islamic fundamentalistic groups fighting in Iraq and Syria.
Sure.
And they're looking south to a ISIS-like organization in Sinai or in Libya, even in south of Jordan. It's all in the web, it's all in Facebook, it's all live. And those, unfortunately, are their heroes, not Superman or Spider-Man, but John the Jihadist is the hero. And this wave is also based on the incitement. Unfortunately, in Israel, many years, we are looking at this, at the incitement as something that, okay, it's happening. Okay, they're doing, but it's only words. Words don't kill. Unfortunately, words kill. And when you take a little kid, send him to the kindergarten, and you teach him that Israel does not exist, and Jews should be killed and slaughtered, and that's what he's growing up. He's going to a kindergarten. That's what he's being taught. He's going to summer school. He's basically it's a military camp, and etc. And when this build level and layer on layer, and eventually it got to a point that he is a teenager, a little bit older, watch TV or watch some internet show, and he decided that I want to be the next. And you see many of them, before they getting out to those horrible terror attacks, they leave posts that saying more or less what I just mentioned.
So it sounds like a lot of this is digital. They're seeing this from online media. They're talking about it on Facebook, on other mediums. Do you think that's the future of counterterrorism efforts then, is monitoring this digital world?
It's in there for a long time. Intelligence moved during the ages from what we call human resources to all kind of of alien, SIGINT, VISINT, and so on. And today you have a whole dimension of war in what we call the cyber dimension. So it's already in there. The problem is that to monitor hundreds of thousands of individuals, it's much more difficult than to try to focus on the Hamas organization in Nablus. But that's what our intelligence services are facing.
Definitely. It sounds like a nearly impossible task. How are they managing, and is there something else they should be doing that you think they're not doing now?
I think that leaving aside the technological efforts that have been done, and Israel is number one in that field, no doubt. It's not far from here in Herzliya. In one side there is young soldiers, 18, 20, sitting and developing all kind of abilities, and then 5, 6 years later they move to the other side of the road in Herzliya, and all of the innovation and the startup nation, that everything is being built there. So that is important, but that's something that Israel is doing well. I think that there are other elements in this wave of terror that should be dealt better. The first one is the incitement that I just mentioned.
And this is from the Palestinian government, correct? This isn't just random Palestinians speaking and inciting.
It's in the Palestinian Authority media. It's in the curriculum. It's in their books. It's in the books that are being paid by the United Nations, by USAID, and other international money that comes in. It's in their TV, radio, everywhere. So it's in there. And this incitement, for too long, is being dealt and not properly. And this is something that I think should be dealt totally different. Sure. The other part, and I think this part is being much better, is try to divide between the very, very small number and percentage of terrorists in the what you call the Palestinian population, and the vast majority of people who just want, like me and you, live their life quietly, bring some food home and enjoy life. And by not putting up, a whole closure and close up the entire area of Judea and Samaria and so on, but trying to really focus on where are the problems and from where the terrorists came out, and on the other hand, give the majority of the population the ability to work, the ability to move, the ability to bring home the food, the bread and the meat that everybody needs. I think that's something that's been doing very, very well by the current government and leadership of the IDF and the intelligence services. And the last part, which is something that everybody is talking about, but unfortunately not managed to really to carry out, is how you deal with those terrorists and their immediate surroundings. And what the IDF is doing now in Yatta, in south region of Hebron, I think that's something that this is how things should work. You surround this village from whom those two terrorists came out, and you deal with them, with their immediate surroundings. You try to find out where they built this weapon, where did they get the ideas, who helped them, who drove them, etc., and focus on that, and not try to make all the Arabs or all the Palestinians in entire Judea and Samaria enemies.
Well, certainly sounds like we have a lot of things to work on, and also a lot of initiatives that are already underway. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you.
An American Jew has picked a pretty interesting career path and decided to make mockumentaries about how there's still an anti-Israel bias in the U.S. And you should be warned, he even found some American students who wanted to donate to terror groups. Ami Horowitz operates the company Disruptive Pictures and is known for making videos that mock documentaries and are generally pretty shocking. His goal is to shock and awe by showing people how there's still an anti-Israel bias in the U.S., along with exposing other kinds of ignorance and racism. And he's definitely been successful. At UC Berkeley, he got students to support him while he ran around waving an Islamic State flag. And in Portland, students donated to explicitly support Hamas terror attacks against Israeli soft targets like schools and hospitals. It might sound too crazy to be real, so it's a good thing Horowitz catches it all on camera. He's working on a feature film called Bad Jew, which is set on exposing how widespread anti-Semitism has become. Horowitz says his first really viral film was the one about the Islamic State flag, which also showed him waving an Israeli flag at UC Berkeley, and students supporting the Islamic State more than Israel. That video was viewed nearly 15 million times and was spread on Fox News, Facebook, YouTube, and more. Horowitz's first film was called You and Me, about suffering around the world under the watch of the United Nations, as well as the UN's blatant bias against Israel. The film was a huge success and got major attention in US media outlets across the country. In all the films, Horowitz says his goal is to bring up major issues and biases, especially those related to Israel, and show them to the world in an entertaining visual format. Horowitz says he loves making the movies because it brings awareness to important issues, and people are more likely to watch movies than to read a book or articles. And judging by the view count, it looks like he might be right. With all the talk about yesterday's terror attack, it's easy to forget that a terror attack is more than just a statistic. It involves real people, men, women, and children, who've experienced an event that is truly traumatic and will stay with them the rest of their lives. ILTV reporter Aaron Porras joins us from the Sarona Market Plaza with reactions on the ground the morning after this tragic attack.
Here at the Sarona Market in Tel Aviv, it's typically a scene of tourists and people from all over the world who come to enjoy themselves, but last night was a very different scene, as behind me at the Max Brenner Chocolate Bar and Cafe, 2 Palestinian gunmen came, murdered 4 and wounded 16 others.
הרגשה רעה, אנחנו מרגישים מזועזעים ממה שקרה פה אתמול. אחד מהלקוחות שלנו פשוט נרצח במקום, עשו עליו פשוט וידאו הריגה לפי מה שרואים במצלמות.
You especially feel bad because you know that you can be the next one. It can come from everyone, from everywhere. Is a terror attack that you don't know the people.
It's very sad, tremendously sad that it happened. We live sometimes in an illusion that things are getting better, and then reality strikes us right back in the face. We have to keep on hoping that things will get better, but always be ready to be strong when it doesn't happen exactly the way we expect it to be.
There are Arabs, they live in Israel. Most of them live in Israel. They look like everyone, and the security feeling that you got in Tel Aviv, which is a really special city, you don't have it anymore.
Though clearly still in shock by the recent events, most reactions the morning after reflected an understandable mix of feelings between being scared and deeply unsettled and feeling hopelessness for the prospect of any future peace.
Unfortunately, every time we think that we're getting to some ceasefire and peace and quiet and opening our borders towards the Palestinians in Hebron and all over to work in Israel and to feel what it is to live in peace, especially when it comes to Ramadan. Every year we allow thousands of them to come into Israel and spend time with us here in Israel on the beach and all over, and it seems like they never learn. They don't care if they're hurting us or hurting their own people. And the truth is, I don't see, I can't see the horizon. I can't see what's going on in the future.
Reporting for ILTV, this is Aaron Porras.
And now for our Hebrew word of the day. Today's word has to do with the upcoming Shavuot holiday. So today we're learning the word givina, which means cheese in Hebrew. Shavuot is a Jewish holiday that's known for being filled with lots of tasty food and dairy products. If you're going to a family gathering for the holiday, there's a really good chance that there will be lots of cheese to eat. So we hope you love givina. From pizza to pasta to massive cheese platters, there's no going wrong with the Shavuot meal, which is based around dairy products. After all, there's a reason Israel is called Eretz Zavat Halav V'Davash, or the land of milk and honey. So eat up at the holiday meal, and we hope you have a happy Shavuot. Let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Today it's 79 and sunny in Tel Aviv. Tomorrow the temperature should stay the same, but it will be partially cloudy. All right, everybody, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.84 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv, and don't forget to check out our evening update every night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks for watching, and see you tonight.